You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome again to the Monster Sci-Fi Show. I am your host, The Monster, back to give you part 2 of our Dune book club series. But really, this is the first of 3 podcasts in which we're doing each book separately. So for Dune, part 1 is actually called Dune. So this portion, we're going to be only talking about Dune. Part 1, which is called Dune. I don't know how many times I can say Dune in this podcast because it's a Dune podcast. But we're going to introduce this Dune podcast to you. So the first person speaking right now in this Dune podcast is going to be Mr. Gene. Take it away, Mr. Gene.
I would like to say I thought it was really funny that we saw the scene where he's introduced to Duke and whatever the Atreides guy, whatever, his trainers, his friends, they come in and Monty told this story about how years ago I came to a break room and he had his head down and he was sleeping and I didn't want to disturb him. I came and I drank some water and he said, "Hey, Gene," without looking up. And I was like, "How'd you know it was me?" And he quoted Dune at the time. And then years later, he got to give me the context of the quote. And I was like, "Oh, that's hysterical."
That's
because
what
I understood because the way he walked, I understood his footprints. I knew how his patterns would be.
Oh my God! So Monty's got the training.
He's got nerd. Yeah, he's having.
I got the weird thing.
Yeah,
he's got the training.
But it was funny because like those things can be duplicated. I know the difference. I'm like, that's funny, Monty. That's okay.
All right. So on that note, let's get started because we got a lot to get through, and hopefully we won't get too bored. But we'll try to make this fun. So welcome everyone to our first, finally, our Dune book club, part 1, which is called Dune. So I have a PowerPoint presentation to show you guys. So we have with us as our host, we have Heather, Dancing Queen in the Sahara. I don't know.
I'm going to raise the roof too.
Then we have Rebecca.
Hi, everyone.
Not there, at home.
Yeah.
And me, Montgomery. And so, who is with us today?
I'm Gene. Hi. Friend of Monty's, otherwise known as Mr. Gene. If you listen to our podcast, if we become friends, no worries.
Oh, there's Joe.
In his car with his unstable camera.
Is he going to be in his car again? Please be in the car again.
Yeah. I don't know. You look at this frame, and when it moves around, you're kind of nauseous a little. It's all right.
There's Joe in the car.
Hey, Joe.
Yes. Hi.
So that's Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Hello.
All right. We do have a couple other coworkers for Heather. They're watching also.
And
you have followers.
Yeah.
More Fremen. We have to wait till their Stitches wake up.
So, we got a pretty good crowd for today. So, today we have plans within plans.
Okay.
I can hear it already, Gene. We have some Dune news, some toys to talk about. I got actually a hold of the actual Dune graphic novel, the adaptation as a PDF. So each meeting will do one of the different parts of the book. So it's only 3 issues. So with 3 meetings, we should be able to cover that easily. Then we'll go into our Dune discussion, which is going to be the bulk of our stuff. And then we're going to end it with some more Dune memes. So that's going to be our plans.
Always fun.
AKA the best part.
All right. So starting off, we have, as we all know, that the movie that was supposed to happen on the 18th has been pushed back or pushed forward. Yeah, pushed forward to next year. But the official date is now October 1st. for 2021.
Mm.
We'll see if that still happens because, even though the vaccines are coming, we still don't know if there's going to be enough confidence for people to go back into the movies, let alone,
And this needs a big theatrical release. So it can't just be on demand on your tiny TV. It has to be big screen. So we will be patient.
Broken into two parts. So, if we thought, just book one of reading it is a lot, I'm trying to imagine trying to encapsulate that into two movies. It's still a lot to put into. But it really needs to be on the big screen. So
on the upside, like Paul's gonna age up by the time they film the second.
Basically, not like that time jump in the Dune movie, like 2 years later, and like what the hell happened to 2 years later?
Yeah, that ticked me off a little bit.
So it's all about accuracy. If you really think.
Wait, we did this in Fan Four Stick. It didn't work well for them. So just
don't remind me of that movie.
And then lastly, our Dune graphic novel for book 1 is coming out next Tuesday. So unfortunately, I don't have anything that I can show you guys. Maybe for the next one, I can go a couple of stills from there. But that, again, was supposed to happen before the movie coming out in December. Perfect segue. And nope. So we'll see what happens with that book. Next, we have... All right. So Gene and I, about a week or two ago, went out to Target like we normally would do, looking for toys.
It's a pandemic. What do you want?
So this actually was in Target. The Baron Harkonnen, it is huge. Like it's a foot tall, and it's heavy, and that's for $40. And I'm like, $40 just for one figure. And here's, Lady Jessica, right? And we have the Build-A-Figure. So you can see here is the Beast Raban's head. But when I look at it, I'm like, it's not to scale. So I'm like, why am I buying a larger figure with all the other regular action figures when it's not to scale? Like, not that I want to play with my toys, but if I'm playing with my toys,
but if I did,
sure that they're all the exact same size and not like, it's not dwarfing them. Because, granted, Baron Harkonnen is, the big floating fat man, but that's really excessive. But the good news is that, well, sort of, I have placed an order for these figures, for the Lady Jessica figure and Stilgar and Paul and Duncan. They were supposed to be in the mail early November. Walmart delayed it, so I'm going to get it early December. So if I get it in December, I'll do an unboxing video during our book club. So it'll be kind of cool to look at. All right. So real quick, we don't have to go through the details because literally this is more about...
That sure is the movie.
It's the movie. Literally, it's the movie, but in comic form. And there's the two moons. But
Can I just immediately complain about
that?
There's
a hand. Yay.
Which, when I watched this again, oh my God, I didn't notice that there was a hand here in the moon.
For years.
For years. And I'm like, how could I have never seen this? And there's a hand, and then the mouse is in the other one. And I'm like,
what?
Yeah.
So.
Oh. And I think that was penciled or drawn by Belson Cabbage.
Yeah.
At least the cover is. I know that.
Princess Erlon in the beginning, it's hard to do the whole speech and then fade out and fade in. I'm like, well,
oh yes, I almost forgot. By the way.
So it's not bad. It's literally, almost a shot for shot
portrayal of what happens in the movie.
The special effects for the shield look better in the comic. Is all I'm going to say.
I mean, there's Patrick Stewart. So, I mean,
All glory.
Dean Stockwell.
Yeah. So, it does what it needed to do at that time, is give you a version of that movie And if you didn't see it, well, you can kind of have it. I don't know.
Yeah, like for the people who maybe their parents were like, the movies, no. But you can read.
Right, you can have the comic version.
I'm sorry, though. This story was very confusing. Again, I thank Monty and Joe for watching it with me the first time, but I want applause for going back to it the second time on my own, alone,
Yourself.
with a notepad. It's like, okay, here we go.
We weren't going to quiz you, Eugene, I promise.
No.
Maybe we should. No.
So
I spent hours going over this book this week, towards the end of this week. Hours listening to it on books on CD because I want to get the pronunciations of these weird names and things correct.
yeah, even then, I still have problems trying to stay focused. I mentioned earlier that I had to finish the last 5 hours with the audiobook and the actual book to kind of keep me focused, to kind of get caught up for today's discussion. But it was a struggle for me, even though I read this many times. I'm glad I used the audiobook because there was more things that I discovered, much like the hand in the moon. Little moments, little nuanced moments that I found really interesting to discuss, and we'll get to that point. So from this point, Rebecca, you want to do the presentation, or Heather, do you have that?
I have the PowerPoint.
Yes.
But this is mostly just a guide, based on like Heather had drafted up her own little like discussion questions based on the entire book, really.
Because I wasn't sure how we were going to break this down.
Yeah.
So I tried to isolate what I thought were like among the most important or stuff that like stood out personally to me.
Now.
Yeah. So to me, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting. I'm like very character driven, or like I notice themes. Actual plot is something that like I experience without necessarily keeping it at the forefront on my mind. And I'll say this before I begin, that I actually feel like the plot of Dune, going back to it, is fairly simple. And I was watching a reviewer who like did like a really quick breakdown of the main plot, and then so he could like do an analysis of the adaptation. But when he was like talking about the main like plot, he's like, I'm going to leave a lot out, but the basic story is still pretty simple. Like Paul is still a young man who comes into a lot of power. It's a very chosen one narrative. And at the heart of it, he's trying to like avenge his father and carry on the legacy given to him by his mother. Mm-hmm. So the actual plot is simple. So what I suggest for everyone who's like coming into Dune is, well, what do you care about the most? Do you care about the world building? It's got nuance for that. Do you care about character? It has nuance for that. So a lot of my discussion questions are what I care about, which is like who Paul is as a person, who Jessica is. Is she a powerful figure, or is she kind of just thrown into these like, because she doesn't really have a choice on her abilities. Like the Bene Gesserit kind of bred for thousands of years with an end goal in mind, but within the individual, there's not a whole lot that they can do to deviate. And Jessica is the one person who deviates from it. Like this is stuff, the whole basic plot of the story is stuff that they've been planning for like a millennia, which is why and I can't remember if they revealed this in the first part, but that's why they plant seeds.
I think they say they've been manipulating the generational, the bloodline for generations.
Yeah, and she was supposed to bear a daughter, but like that comes in later. So immediately
generations, right? Okay.
Yeah, so immediately, like I thought we should start at the very beginning, which is because this scene like really stood out to me.
A very delicate time.
Oh boy, here we go.
This was the one scene that like really stood out to me when I was a kid, like when my mom was reading the book to me, which not that we finished the whole thing because that was a lot to tackle back then. But when we first started and he has a test of his humanity. I remember, I think I was too young for it at the time, but I remember like thinking, well, how is this testing his humanity? Like pain is a human. It's a human thing. It's a human experience. Like, I don't understand why he's not allowed to like retrieve his hand. But then reading back on it, like when you first read Dune and you're a kid, you think 15 is like super old because it's so far from your current perspective. You're like, yeah, at 15, I'm gonna be able to rule planets too.
When did you start reading this book?
I like when my mom first read it.
Grew up on Dune.
How old were you?
Younger.
Yeah, you must have grown up on Dune.
Yeah, I did. So,
in fairness, Caladan first, then
Yes, my meaning is like, I don't think you can appreciate Paul until you see him on Caladan as just this average person. You're not going to identify with his character and see yourself through his storyline, or through the importance of like seeing Lady Jessica and seeing some of the traits that she has and appreciating them, and just like, you know, feeling like, oh, I value this in a character, I want to continue reading. Without that level of like seeing him go through these changes. If he was just already great, already grand, already like a demigod, would you care about him?
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I want to bring up with this first question of what was your immediate impression of Paul, given how he responded to the Reverend Mother's test. One is like when you're reading it again, or when you're reading it for the first time as someone who's older, you're being reminded, even by the way that the Reverend Mother speaks of him, he's like, he's only 15. He's very small for his age. He's like insolent. He's arrogant. He's just a teenager. And when he puts his hand in and he describes the level of pain, he feels like the skin is melting off. It's like the very first the very first instance you get of really getting to know who he is at a low point, because like experiencing that level of pain is surely a low point for anyone, but he goes through it to the point that like even Jessica is amazed that he managed to survive it. So if you have any thoughts you want to throw in,
you want to launch the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
am I not sharing it?
No.
coming up.
We see like a part, just like it's at the very top. It's got the little play button on the screen. Just
It's playing for me.
we're not seeing it. We're just seeing like
Beginning.
Let me see.
Let me do resume share.
You might have to stop sharing, Monty, because I'm still seeing yours.
maybe that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, because I was like, I'm not quite seeing the discussion questions yet, and I know that you did it.
Yeah.
I was like, let's see your thing.
Mine says my screen is sharing.
Mine says I'm viewing Monty's screen.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
I don't know.
Now share
I'm
again.
seeing you, Dean.
If it'll let you.
But I think that
Disable participant screen sharing.
isn't the scene written that like
Make back at the host so
Hold
that
on.
you can share.
Hold on.
Okay.
Rebecca, try again.
How's that?
There we
There
go.
you go.
okay, there we go.
All right, there we go. So that's my first question, if anyone wants to jump in.
Well, hold on. Gene wanted to mention something first, or
No, I thought that when during the test, when he puts his hand in the box, it's written that she's testing whether Paul is animal or human, because the animal would react instinctively or something, but the human would be able to overthink or control more of himself and be more rational. I thought that's what I got out of it. I mean, Herbert does address that, I think, in his writings about that, the difference between animal and human. But that's all I wanted to say about that, basically.
Do you agree with the conclusion that a human should be able to like talk himself out of his instinct?
Right, essentially.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, that makes sense. I've seen that before. That makes sense.
Yeah, I like the litany of fear that he like memorizes. That's always been like an important thing, like a nostalgic thing in my heart, because like the litany of fear, I feel like it's very meditative. I will not fear. Fear is
the mind killer thing. The whole
over me.
I
will remain. But yeah, no, I feel like it was a very important test. And do we see anything like this in our day-to-day lives? Do you think anybody could benefit from some tests like this?
Which is my second question, if you want to launch off into it.
Yeah, like do you feel like a politician should be put in a position where it's like, okay,
Well, that's if they're human.
the box.
That's if they're human.
Yeah.
I would love to
Which
watch.
is sometimes up to debate.
I would pay for cable just for that.
Well, I would say, like, this was how I phrased the question because it's my immediate thought when I was, like, reading the book and watching the movie, which is that, no, I would not pass it because I cannot talk myself out of pain, like, even in the moment. But I feel like there are psychological studies of, like, how your brain can adapt and prepare itself for pain, and, like, to some extent, even anticipation can be registered as a more painful experience than like the actual pain that you'll live through. So if you're well prepared for it, I don't like, maybe it is manageable. Like if in the moment, if you can talk yourself into, no, this is going to pass, this is going to pass, this is going to pass. Especially with the threat of death right there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You either pass or you die. So.
Yeah, the alternatives, both of them are bad.
And isn't Paul
Exactly.
One of them just ends. I think I'd be okay with it if I knew like my hand wasn't actually like going through like a
Which he doesn't say.
the dishwasher, and you're like, oh no, don't stick your hand down there while the dishwasher's on. If I knew I would like get my hand back in the end and it would be intact and look like my hand before it went in, I think I'd be okay. I think I could talk myself into going through with it and being like, yeah, I am that level of boss lady. I can do it.
Now the story opens though. I mean, Paul goes to this test, and he's one of the only males because, again, the Bene Gesserits generally only have daughters. But he's the only male, I think, in generations. Well, no male has ever passed this test.
Yeah,
He goes through that.
bothered to test.
Well, to clarify, isn't it the water of life that no man has passed? Not the
Okay.
That is.
Right.
I don't actually know. I don't remember.
because I think because he
Supposed
asked
to be
that
the water
question.
life. Yeah.
Oh, for this test, the Gamgebar test? It's just
No.
that there's never
Right.
been a male offspring.
Yeah.
Right, that's the thing. But he's the first
Right.
one to do it. Then
He's the first male offspring, yeah.
Do you think Paul knows that he's going, like, do you think he knows it once he passes the test that he'll, like, gain, memories from his ancestry? Or do you think
as the Bene Gesserits did. And
sure,
Dune.
Mom, I'll do what you say.
No. That would be after the waters of life. With the test, I'm thinking that it's more like, okay, let's see if you're actually able. Or with the test of humanity, she's also testing the training that Jessica's given him, whether it's sufficient to provide him the ability to be able to do all these other things. In other words, are you worthy of it? This is your test now.
Ooh, I like that insight.
At least that's how I always saw it. And then it's like, and then she says, that's another test that we should give all humans, whether you can be alone. Because they're going, how many people do you know who will be able to pass this test?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us would be like, let me rip my hand off and you're dead. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to
So,
to know that you shouldn't probably put your hand on the stovetop. But Paul was also
right, but
trained for this test without
Yeah.
knowing that there
Like
would be a test.
Not directly, I would say, because I don't think he knew what was going on when it was
I
presented.
don't think so either.
But he was taught to like endure pain, and that mental fortitude can overcome anything. So,
Right.
go ahead, Monty. I think you want to say
No,
something.
but like to Joe's point and what you were saying is that because, and it's not in the first part of the book, but later on you see this, is that when he does the water of life, he does endure a great deal of pain. So if anything, that's like a foreshadowing of what he's going to be dealing with later on. So that's the kind of thing, like your hero is going to be tested. So this is the beginning of your road of being challenged all the way through until the very last thing you do. So be prepared for a lot of stuff along the way to kind of change you to get to that point. So this is more like, oh, he can do this. So let's keep on pushing that. He's ready.
Out of curiosity, has anyone here seen Westworld?
I have.
You have? And I saw the first season a long time ago, but like this talk is reminding me of how they, like, I think the theme of the first season is a lot about like, well, to suffer is to be human. Like through suffering, you find humanity. And then since power is like such a big theme of Dune, it's not just like to suffer is to be human, but it's how you overcome it. Yeah, the power you bring to overcome that suffering is more than human, I would even say, because in the end, like the power that that Paul has is born from that struggle, and like how he responds to it, how he like molds to it.
Yeah.
It's a good connection, Rebecca. It's nice.
Yeah. That was pretty awesome, Rebecca. But I was going to mention something else that I always thought, but that singular point, I always thought it felt like, okay, here's the threshold. He's just passed it. Now we continue on with the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the hero cycle from Campbell. I'm going, okay, here's the beginning point. Here's where he goes out of the realm of what he knows. This is the first mystery he has to go through in order to become who he becomes.
Yeah, and that's...
So I'm like, yeah.
But there's no way he can prepare for this test. It's just simply what he's learned cumulatively.
Exactly.
It's just like, it's a random test.
Because he had like the mental fortitude, because he was being trained to be a mentat, and he had all of his like father's men helping him out and giving him insight. I feel like if you were to put like some random 15-year-old who wasn't taught anything, he wouldn't
even put his hand in the box.
No, they'd be like,
nope.
what am I doing? They would be like, what's in the box? And they'd
Somebody
be like,
arrest this lady.
No, but she's the voice on him. He has to do
I
it.
hand him a box.
Yeah, you can tell by the voice.
And then I think we mentioned this earlier. Paul begins the story as a 15-year-old boy. In adaptations, he is portrayed by older actors. Why do you think the film versions altered this aspect of the novel? How does the difference change the character? And I think originally when Heather wrote this, she was thinking specifically about both the David Lynch movie and I'm sorry if I say Fincher, by the way, the David Lynch movie and the adaptation. Yeah, the TV show adaptation, because I think they did go out of their way to pick Timothy. I can't pronounce his last name.
I'll be back, kids. I'm sorry. My nurse is here. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Just go ahead and mute yourself.
Thank you.
I think they did pick him because he looks young, like the actor's in his 20s, but he's not a traditional, like...
He doesn't look older.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a 25, 28-year-old the way that Kyle MacLachlan looks in the original movie. But if you have any insight on, like, part of it, I guess, is just, like, the nature of film, especially a movie that's going to be 2-3 hours long. You can't really have a child actor or an underage actor on set for that long.
No, they did Home Alone very well. I still watch it to this day. I feel like part of it is because you're dealing with such like different themes of like there is definitely a lot more angst, and not just angst, but like I feel like we have a hard time envisioning like a very young person being able to accomplish all of this and seeing them in this way of becoming, very powerful. So I feel like I think they did that so that it didn't just translate as like a movie for children or a show for children. And they were, because, things happen in Dune. And I feel like it was trying to expand the audience because I feel like a lot of people are going to be watching it. And when we first read Dune, we might have been 15-year-olds, but it grew with us. And so when we're watching it as adults, and we don't want to watch like a movie for our kids. We want to watch a movie for us. So I feel like it's the view of the audience. And I think that's why they might have changed like the age of the actors. We also see this in Game of Thrones. Like if you've read the books, everybody's super young. And then we see the film adaptation, like the TV show, and everybody is significantly older. We still see them age throughout the TV show, but it's like it's trying to get a different audience.
But I think even with Game of Thrones, like the changes were done because like in the book, someone like Arya or Bran are like 7 or 9 years old, and you can't realistically ask a 7-year-old child actor to do as much of the heavy lifting as like they ask the 11, 12-year-old actors.
Did you not see the bear girl? What was her name?
No, even her. She's 12. She's 12. Yeah, that actress is 12. Like that. There's a huge jump in maturity from 7-year-old to 12. She doesn't look 12. She's 12 though. Like, I can't remember. She's 12. But
She's 12. She's just 12. She's 12.
Because I'm pretty sure they say the same line from the book as a girl of 12. I'm getting on a tangent though, but I think part of it with like the 70s movie is I don't know if maybe they felt like some of the scenes or like it wouldn't be taken as seriously if you didn't have someone like of that, like, who was mature, who was an adult. Even in the 70s, would it have been marketed as like were they afraid they were going to get marketed as a teen movie if they didn't have Kyle MacLachlan as the lead?
Well, in fairness, not that everyone knows this, but the early write-up for the book club made it sound like it's a teenage,
That's fair,
angsty book.
It is angsty
for an audience that is really not meant. I mean, I think a teen who is really into science fiction will get into this, but not because they're into like the Twilight, where you have, you don't have that issue. This is not that kind of book.
Dune is not YA.
But YA didn't really exist in the 70s. I'll give this the initial marketing that we did. 70s, yeah. The initial marketing that the county did for this book club specifically, it's influenced by how the sci-fi genre and pop culture has changed over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So within the last couple of years, the young adult market has been you have a protagonist between the ages of 14 and 18, you're a teen book. Yeah, no matter what. So, but then you look at, because talking about Paul's age kind of reminds me of Ender's Game, where Ender's 7 or 6 when that book begins, and he's a child.
Children's.
Yeah. He's a child, I think, for the entire first novel. And is that a children's book? No, of course not. Could you have published something like that with the protagonist that young in the modern era? It'd be a lot more difficult. I feel like publishers would have been you need to age this character up.
So you're going to confuse people.
Yeah, so even with Paul, it would have been
in an adult book. That's not, it doesn't exist.
This came up kind of along that point. Again, going off on a tangent here. Anakin Skywalker as a young child in the first Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. When George Lucas was planning to do this, there are people in his inner circle saying, you can't do this. You're going to ruin Star Wars forever. How can you make a movie centered around a boy? Even though we know later on what's going to happen. But is that any different from what we're seeing from here? Is that because I'm an adult now, I can't see myself as a 15-year-old or an 8-year-old back then?
It could have worked.
I don't know. I think this story, though, Dune it's such a rich mix of things, and it's really confusing. I had trouble. Again, I watched it with Monty and Joe, the movie, and I was like, I hate this because it's making me work for the answers.
Don't judge the book on the movie.
This. You know what I mean? I mean, this is my introduction. I dipped my toe into the movie, the Dune movie of 1984, and I was like, oh, this story's just, it's too much story for one short 2-hour movie-ish, and it didn't give, and the thing is that if you want it, though, here are the vittles, here are the wonderful secrets and the tale. Go find it, and the more work you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. But to just understand it, the idea is that the movie's just the teaser. You have to read the book to get the whole thing out of it.
More beneficial if you've read Dune before watching the 80s adaptation of it,
which was Joe's experience.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, Dune, as Dean just said, it's a mix of different experiences. One could tell melange, but the overriding issues that I saw with the book, I'm not going. It's one of those books. It's designed to make you think. When Herbert wrote this, he was doing commentary on a lot of different things at the same time. He just wrapped it up in a coming-of-age story. We have politics, we have the human condition, we have humanity's effect on ecology, which I thought was masterfully done in the book. I mean, all the different considerations within it. just the entire concept of water, the way he honed in with just water, and with spice being this singular thing that if you take it away, the house of cards crumbles. So I guess that's what I really love about the book. It's not one of those books you read once and then put it away and never touch it again.
Yeah, and
it's almost like it was designed to be reread. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It is.
What I was going to say is I think I'll bring that back to this point in that it's important for Paul to be this young, to be 15, because at like the radical change that he's experiencing on like a galaxy spanning level is something that a 15-year-old is going to like feel more intensely, but also going to get like mold into it like significantly faster. Like he adapts to it in a way that somebody older probably wouldn't, but he also he doesn't have like years of perspective to really like have the fortitude. He only has his mental training. So later on, as you see like the weight of being a messiah like really weigh on him, like really affect him, remembering that it all began when he was just a child, I think kind of causes long-term impact to his character. And let me see.
To that point, one of the things that I caught at the very end, there's not a whole lot of Paul in book one. Literally, there's the book test. I mean, the box test, and then he has this conversation with his father about the move to from Caladan to Dune, and he's just kind of in the background for most of the time. But when towards the end of book one, he kind of snaps at his mother. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like that moment that when you stand up to your own parent, like, not saying like it's abusive, but just like there will come to be a point in which
you realize how flawed they are.
Himself.
Yeah.
And he kind of talks down to his mom, but to the point where you brought me here to Arrakis. Now I'm addicted to the spice and I can't leave, but you kind of knew that this was going to be your plan. So even though she kept saying, I did this for my Duke, I did this out of love for him to have a male child, he's kind of seeing behind the scenes, like, and calling her out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that kind of like drew me really hard, that was that moment of him becoming that first step to being an adult, of just not going along with what being told, but I'm like, no, let me tell you what I see. And then that's the moment I'm like, there's the beginnings of Paul Muad'Dib really getting to be his own person. So I see there's this really dramatic shift from the beginning of the story to that first part of book one to really like, and again, I've missed that moment, just seeing that transformation in this book in a very long time, but it hit me hard. So it's really interesting to see that. Yeah, maybe the 15 may not be the ideal, but you get to that point in your life, you're going to have that moment, whether you're 15, 16, 17, whatever, you're going to make that dramatic stand. So anyone can relate to that. So that's why I think it would work.
Yeah, the moment you realize your parents are flawed and maybe their choices were not
in your best interest.
Yeah, quite as perfect as they made it out to be.
Yeah.
All right. So this one I think we can...
Traitor!
We learned about that on page 25.
So I kind of want to talk about the movie.
To his wife. He's like, I want her back.
All right, wait, Heather, I'm going to let you loose in 1 second because I kind of want to take this back to like the decisions that they made in the movie. I'm going to read this really quick. We learn immediately that Dr. Yue is a traitor against the family. I'm not going to... I mispronounce a lot of things, so if I skip something, no question.
Nobody pronounced anything. He pronounced it 3 different ways.
Trades. Why do you think Frank Herbert revealed this piece of information early to the reader rather than just surprise us with it? And I kind of want to tie this into like the way that like the different character perspectives and the way that they tried to adapt that into the movie. Because Heather and I were talking about this, I think even with Jean, like right before we started. So, okay, Heather, go off.
So much internal monologue. We know what everybody is doing and what everybody is thinking. So instead of allowing us to, as readers or the audience, to form our own opinion, we're basically being given
in the movie. Yeah.
Insight. I feel like I'm being initiated into this very cool club where I get to decide what I feel about it. I like Yui. I know he's a villain. I don't care. I love villains. I do. Because I see them as being more complex. Yui, it's not that he doesn't want to be loyal, because if he really, it feels like in a way he doesn't have a choice, but in another perspective, I feel like he did choose. He chose his wife, and he chose himself. And in the end, he basically says, I'm still going to try and, be a little bit honorable and do the right thing. But he was put in a tough situation where he was like, I want the person I'm supposed to be with for the rest of my life back. And this is the only way I feel like I can do it. And I'm being made out to be this horrible villain, and I feel so guilty. And that's why I love him, because he's complex. He's rich. I love that angst. I love that sweet, sweet angst.
Yeah, Yuri's definitely one of the great tragic characters here. He was trained to save lives. He's like, in a weird way, the whole Suk school conditioning is the ultimate Hippocratic oath to do no harm. But as the Baron says later in the book, well, when you hear about the traitor, he goes, if you find the right lever, you can move any world. And he found the correct lever, which was Huey's love for his wife.
Yeah.
Who he did all of this in order to find out whether she was still alive, because he had no idea. And of course, Huey understood who was around him. He had Sulfur, who's a mentat, who's constantly looking for possible threats to the Atreides family. And he goes, well, Huey would be suspected first, but that magic Suk school conditioning gives him the free ticket. It's like, no, it can't be him. He's been conditioned. He can even operate on the Emperor without any issue. And then, around Jessica, he has to be as careful as well, because Jessica's trained in minutiae and able to see
into one's thoughts,
different things about someone's thoughts or feelings, or just by the most subtle of moments and conditions. And he even has those fears and trepidations within it. When you read his about him within the book, it's like, oh no, she suspects me, da 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 da, and then she confuses it for something else about his utter vehemence and hatred of the Harkonnens. And unfortunately, the one who's made, I'm sorry, I was going to say the one who made probably the worst choice, sadly, is the Duke Leto. Because Duke Leto didn't think anybody who hated the Harkonnens that much would do him harm. There was a problem.
But Duke Leto, they all know they're going into a trap when they go to the planet. They do. Everyone knows everything already.
They basically get told. And actually, Eugene, I'm gonna bring that back to something that Heather said, where it's like, I think part of the reason that I admire it is, the perspective change and the fact that they're basically told your dad's about to die, this empire is about to slip through your fingers, you need to prepare for the worst, you need to prepare for catastrophe. Is that that's kind of the same the way that the book operates, is in that it's giving you all this information. It's telling you this is your hero, this is the mom, this is the traitor, this is it's giving you all this information, and then like Heather said, it's letting you come to your own conclusion. It's not limiting it to one perspective, because one person is going to say, oh, that's not right, that's not justifiable. Instead, it's telling you this is why they did it. Whether or not you think is justifiable is up to you, which is also kind of how it tackles some of the concepts about ecology and power and religion. It's saying this is what's going on. This is why people are doing this. Do you think it's noble, or do you think it's doomed, or all these things? Right.
Yeah, I feel like Yui, in a way, I feel like he is justifiable. I don't feel like he's going over his Hippocratic oath, because just like you're on a plane, if a plane is falling, you're supposed to put that mask on yourself before you help someone else. He feels so crappy about himself and his situation, and he's freaking out. He's not going to be able to give anybody else care. And in the end, he still kind of tries in his weird way to get, to have his pie and eat it too.
It's a very flawed choice, but it's an understandable choice.
I understand him, and I still think although he's making bad choices, in the same way, I feel like in the end he's just he knows he's going to get found out, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to handle that itself. But I feel like I like a man who's like, my wife comes first.
Well, okay, and so like in the book, like that introspection is kind of important to like getting to understand these characters, which is why I understand why the movie felt the need to add in that voiceover, as terrible as it was. So, like as a kind of roundabout way to like bring that back to adaptation, like do you think you can convey like the same character without that voiceover? Because like I don't think the new movie's gonna have that.
No.
So, how are they gonna like showcase that?
I was gonna say, like, if you know Blade Runner, that movie has one narration, one voiceover for Deckard, and then Ridley Scott redid his movie and took out the narration.
And it still works.
Because I've seen that movie so many times, I still heard him in my head throughout the whole part of the movie. As far as the inner monologue, to have multiple characters like they did in Dune, I don't think would be necessary to just have that moment.
Yeah,
it's one thing to do it in the book because you're given that
that's the medium, yeah,
in their heads. It's another thing when you have a different medium like a movie, you just need to convey the exact same moment in a different way, not literal to have inner monologues. So
yeah, because their picture is already being painted for you from the fact that it is just a film. Right. Where in the book, I feel like this is adding to like your visual image that you're creating in your head when you're reading. So I think they'll leave out the internal monologue completely, and we won't know Yui's a traitor until he actually does something.
So you don't think they'll try and find a way to convey the same information, but like without the dialogue?
Of him like chatting with the Harkonnens and being threatened.
Hopefully not in the bad way. Like they won't have terrible exposition.
Like this is my prediction. Like you'll be given that insight as an audience in a different way. I don't think we'll hear as many.
It will still be there. You think?
I don't think there will be as much. I don't think there will be an internal monologue. You will know that Paul Atreides is in pain just by his facial expressions and his screaming, ow.
You will know that Jessica is relieved and surprised just by her
pain.
There's a moment in the book in which Dr. Yui gives Paul the OC Bible. Right. And he wants him to read a certain passage because Dr. Yui
my favorite passage.
And that's how you convey the hatred he has that's underlying about the Harkonnens. Mm-hmm. That should be in this movie.
Yeah.
Because him saying, well, telling Lady Jessica, you don't know about my wife, but she, we have like not great history with them. But that moment with Paul and Dr. Yui, I think that really does a better job to underpin something about his background to demonstrate something triggered with him reading his wife's favorite passage.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, you can do a lot just from the little bits that are given. So let's see. I think the next question is about the Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay. This one's kind of a broad question about like themes and stuff. The Freemen hope to change Arrakis from a desert planet to a lush paradise. The scarcity of water could make that change a substantial improvement for humans, but deadly for the native sandworms who reside within the planet. Of what we've read so far, is human influence on the ecology a noble cause or a destructive one? And I'll go ahead and I'll point out that like the book, I think, does not give any definitive answers. Yeah. It's basically like, this are the Freemen, this is what they want, this is what might happen, and it lets you kind of decide from like extrapolate your own conclusion from that information. So I think, as Joe was pointing out, like the human influence over ecology was something that Frank Herbert was clearly very interested in, and something that I think, for obvious reasons, makes the book still very relevant in the modern era. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that or if they want to expand on it.
I think humans are destructive. Like, just in nature, we do a lot of pollution, and as we see in the film, I feel like I don't know if we can make an Arrakis a beautiful, lush planet and how it would change the people who live on Arrakis. How would it change the way the Freemen prize water and their religion?
Yeah, the culture would change.
Everything. However, I feel like them just being present is going to change everything.
It's already like disruptive in some way.
Yeah. It's hard to see one without the other.
Yeah, like this might be a point we have to go back to later on, like through, like as we read the rest of the book. But it was something I wanted to bring up now, is like kind of like at the forefront of everyone's minds as you continue to read.
The freedom of the native people on the planet, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Harkonnens have been mining the planet for water for years, and then the Emperor decides, well, I'm going to give it over to the Atreides because I'm going to mess with them and do this coup kind of thing, right? But
because the
none of them consider the Freemen to be like important at all.
Yeah.
Which was weird to me. I'm like, but they've got stockpiles of water.
And you know, that's actually an interesting point, because the Freemen, like Arrakis is their planet, but it's also like the planet of the sandworms. So, and the sandworms, like if there's a massive ecological change and it becomes like a green ocean-filled planet, like they might not survive.
They won't.
They outright will not survive. So, but then the Freemen would be able to prosper, and massive human colonies could be established. So it was something that was also brought up at the last meeting, where they're like, there's no aliens except the sandworms. So it's telling you, like, these creatures exist. They have as much presence in this planet, even more presence than the humans do, but they're seen as an obstacle rather than like rightful residents.
And in a way, they are a more of an obstacle, because the worms or the makers produce the spice, which everybody's addicted to. If you get rid of the worms, people die. But without water, you also die. So it's like a toss-up. I feel like you need to have balance. And if you don't have balance, everybody suffers.
Okay. That's the way the story is told, because you're told about the Atreides, you're introduced to the Harkonnens, and then the Fremen. But the Fremens are the native people on the planet, and they're not even taken into consideration. But they've got the prophecy that the Bene Gesserits have been trying to. But the Bene Gesserits have been like, yeah, no, the Harkonnens and the Atreides. If only you'd had a female heir, this would have all been fine.
Well, they eventually wanted to produce a male heir, but they wanted to.
He just showed up like a generation earlier than expected,
they were not prepared for this, because they've been laying seeds forever. But I feel like the Bene Gesserits knew all along that the Freemen held all the power, because they were like the majority.
But the Freemans have the prophecy that
they can control the world.
But if I could just interject for a moment. We have to remember with Leotyne and the whole idea of using people as an ecological force in that manner, instead of being destructive, to be constructive. And the fact that they even say it in the book, I forgot the term that they used, but simply put, it was the people who are ready to stretch out and grab something, but have patience to wait as long as it takes to be able to have it. And the whole concept of like treating part of the world as a paradise for humanity, and part of the world as remaining deep desert for the sandworms, so that you have that balance. I think that's one of the deeper themes within the entire book. This concept of a dynamic equilibrium, where you have to have that balance of, do you have enough water to be able to live, or do you have enough spice to be able to live?
Mm-hmm. So you would argue that the book is calling for equilibrium. It's calling for that balance.
It's calling for a better balance.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to put it. Like the current balance is not working.
We need the Atreides to restore balance. If they're not in the picture, the Harkonnens are continue.
Heather wants to make an Avatar reference.
Yeah. Well,
I see it.
Okay.
She's stopping herself short.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go there.
All right.
No. But simply put, it. Just get some deeper things, but please continue.
Well, I actually don't really have like a definitive opinion on the Harkonnens, at least not yet. I know. Heather's really offended. I'm saying this to bait you.
They're gross. That's when you read Sting, it's sexy.
They're really gross in the movie in a way I was not expecting. I am still traumatized. I cannot believe you guys did that to me.
like face. Oh
God, like so many, and that acting
is a
like,
condition. It doesn't make you evil, or does it?
Anyway, this was a question that Heather had originally. I think I basically left it intact. Of what is your impression of the Harkonnens so far? Are they just evil? Are their actions so far justifiable? Like, what do you think? What's your opinion on our big baddies?
Yeah, if you were to like see them from a different perspective and read from their storyline and not the other, and hear their like villainous cackle and their floating evil,
which there's definitely like
I think they are evil, but would you, if you saw from their perspective, would you just write them off and be like, nope, they're the villain of the story?
They're worse. They're rich and they feel entitled.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it.
They're
yeah.
like, oh, this is the way it is. We've got all these powers. We've been ruling this, and
that's it.
The Emperor's made a deal with us, and we're just going to crush the Harkonnens, and it'll be great, and we'll be back in power, and
But in a way, just like the Atreides, they just want to do what's best for their house, and if that means like climbing the ladder and crushing people before they're able to climb past you.
Is that really a noble cause? Is it inherently a noble cause to like want to do?
Yeah, but is
I think it's value neutral, like in terms of morality.
Yeah, like I know they're evil because I've read enough.
It's just like okay, conclusion reached.
That's how evil works.
How evil works. I went far enough. I've come to my conclusion. But when you're first learning about them, is there any part of you that's just like, I don't know, does this automatically make you a bad person just because you have acne, you happen to have red hair? Does this make you soulless?
You're still going off the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a thing that
self-interest, basically, though, the self-profit, and just keep their wealth and keep their power.
It is all about self-interest.
Concerned about, but they're not about helping the universe. I mean, they're worried about how the guild and everyone's going to see them, kind of, but it's not important to them. They just have their plans.
Yeah, I think you can find traits admirable, but still say that they're kind of evil. Like, anyways, Monty, do you want to say something?
Yeah, there was a thing, and I'm not sure because I'm watching so many different things. Like the universe has a place for everything, and everything has a place. And they're seeing themselves like, no, we're here, Fremen are here. Here's our place, and that's their place.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that.
Would you have like noble and justifiable characters without villains? Is there any redeeming qualities in the Harkonnens? I think that
right off the bat,
planning.
A big surprise, a big thing. Paul reveals you're Harkonnen or Harkonnen. If we want to go with the traditional way we could pronounce it.
Harkonnen.
I like Harkonnen.
That's how they said it in the movie. Harkonnen.
Harkonnen has no emphasis.
Harkonnen.
I like Harkonnen. But the fact that Lady Jessica is the daughter of the Baron, obviously it's about enculturation. How you were raised does not make you evil.
Mm-hmm.
So she's really Harkonnen, but she's not evil. Her dad, he kind of is the way how he acts and how he just treats the world around him. So again, it's you can have Luke Skywalker, who's the son of Darth Vader, who is still good, and Darth is not all that bad. So there's always good and bad in everything. Mm-hmm. But it's just a matter of how you look at someone's background.
Yeah. And the choices they make.
And the choices you make, right, exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like the Harkonnens are important to the storyline because we wouldn't be
of course,
with Yui's actions if we didn't have that baseline of this is the true villain, this is the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, I like to see that I always just saw the Harkonnens as a dark reflection of us.
Yeah, the worst.
They're still people. It's just that they're the ones who give into their base in nature. And also, I mean, if you were to write a book in the Harkonnens' perspective, this is them finally getting vengeance on the Atreides for the betrayal.
Yeah,
that's their motivating factor.
Yeah, that in a way is their like noble cause. I want to do right by me. I want to do right by my family.
Right, because I was wrong, and it's I just thought it was interesting because I'd have to bring references to the books that are not written by Frank Herbert, the Brian Herbert and Timothy Anderson books, because they give more perspective on that. Because they talk back to the Bulgarian Jihad and what happened.
Not missing you.
Now, yeah, I know.
From
But
the
still,
Brian Herbert.
it gives the finer point as to why the Harkonnens became who they became. Because originally they were not like this. They were much like the Atreides. They were a noble house who had a higher standard of morality. But then again, the concept of nobility. It's like, do we have the, shall we say, I wouldn't say fairy tale notion, but the real world notion of what nobility is, or the idealized version of nobility? Because I see that as being those reflections. Like, the Atreides are idealized, while the Harkonnens are more what we would consider to be realistic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The Atreides are what we want to be. The Harkonnens are what we are.
So since we only have half an hour
Right.
left, I really only had 2 questions, but we can skip them. I don't know if Monty had something else that you might need the last half hour for.
No,
We're good? We can keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go over. Continue.
Oh, we're good.
All right, because like I said, there's only 2 more questions. So the other one, Heather was asking earlier who your favorite character is, and despite the flaws, I think, and to some extent even like the level of short-sightedness that some of her choices are, I do really admire Lady Jessica, and so I'm just going to read this really quick. Lady Jessica's choice to defy orders and bear a son rather than a house, rather than a daughter, sets into motion the plot of the novel. As a Bene Gesserit, she has profound influence and great abilities. Is she powerful because of those abilities, in spite of them, or not at all? And I guess powerful, I mean it in like a very broad sense of the word. Like what makes her
Character.
like what defines her, and to some extent, like that power that we see in her and that we see in Paul. Like, do you think it's only because of their abilities, or do you tie it into who they are as people, like the choices that they make? Just what do you guys think?
I like Lady Jessica a lot. I like the fact that she loves the Baron she loves the Duke so much she gives him a son for the love. She's a loving, careful character. You know what I mean? That's her choice to do that, and I think it's a pure choice. So I like her character a lot.
Yeah, and another was she also, like, as much as she loves Paul and she loves the Duke, she does put him in harm's way. And as Monty points out, it's something that like Paul calls her out on and says, you did this to me. But does that in any way like shape the way that you see her character? Do you think she's just a flawed like mother, or is it like maybe her actions are justified in the end?
I feel like because she had to make such a choice, whether or not she wanted to, have a child or have a male heir for the Duke, I think that makes her I feel like I appreciate her more as a character. I feel like even in the books, what I mean by like not at all, could she be replaced by like a potted plant and you wouldn't notice and the storyline wouldn't be affected? Like if you were to remove her character,
no.
Do you think the storyline would make sense? And absolutely not, because she sets everything into motion.
Right.
She's the reason Paul is here, and we're reading from his perspective, and things are going down. Do you think the same story would go down if she had a daughter? Do you think they would have? No. You think they would?
And she later does have a daughter, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. But do you think they would?
I use the word creepy. But, okay, go ahead.
And no doubt,
they're synonyms.
Drinks the water of life, becomes fully born. I'm like,
oh god, what? I love her daughter. Like the whole family is just.
You should wait until the later books and then make that comment. But like,
spoilers.
Just keep reading. Just keep reading.
Okay.
But I feel like, do you think that like she's responsible for the Duke's death because her daughter, supposedly before Paul, who becomes the Kwisatz Haderach or Muad'Dib or whatever, was supposed to unite the houses, was supposed to stop this feud, and the Reverend Mother even like approaches her and is all like,
yeah, you threw out all our plans.
Did you F up? Did you really do this? We could have solved everything. And now you took the power away from us, and now we can't help you. It's all on you.
I think she even asks, like, oh, like, did you do this out of love or did you do it out of pride? Like, did you think you could bear the Messiah rather than just, like, the next stepping stone?
Did you think you could do this on your own?
And, like, to some extent, I want to say, like, that arrogance that you see in Paul is definitely in Jessica.
Yeah. I feel like Jessica is the queen on the chessboard. She really is. She might not be making all the moves all at once, but it really, without her, we wouldn't be...
We don't have this plot. Yeah, like, we don't have this story.
We wouldn't have this angst.
Yeah.
We wouldn't
Well, actually, so far, do you guys have a favorite character?
I feel like my characters evolve throughout the series. I really, at first I'm all like, with Dr. Yui, I'm just like...
That's your man.
That's why I love him. And then it changes when things happen.
Jean, Joe, Nancy, anyone?
I like Lady Jessica.
Yes.
It's hard not to like Paul because Paul's like the chosen one.
That's true.
He's Neo. He's Luke Skywalker. He's all these heroes. You know what I mean? And he's destined to be it from the beginning. You know, and he's just discovering as we all are. And yet I have to go through the minutia and the weirdness of like, all right, so it's this way in the movie, but it's different in the book. And you know, and then there's different interpretations from the movies and TV shows. But I don't know. I do respect Lady Jessica quite a bit. I think she is
good.
You know, and plus she's going to be played by Rebecca Ferguson in the next movie. I do not like Rebecca Ferguson. She's amazing.
Well, if we're going by actors, they're all my favorite characters.
Ooh, I never thought about that. I like Zendaya.
I'd say Paul and Duncan.
Paul, yeah. Nancy says Paul. Paul's her favorite.
Paul and Duncan.
Duncan.
I like the Swordmaster and the poet, bard, fighter.
Yeah. I think
like that choice. We can't forget about Duncan.
Shawnee in the movies, I feel like she's gonna be such a more strong character than the first adaptation of the film. And I look forward to seeing how she changes and evolves. I'm really excited for the new movie. I think my favorite character will change, yeah.
And Joe, do you have a favorite character?
Actually, I like all of them. Probably my favorite, with all that's said and done, would have probably been the old Duke Leto.
Ooh,
nice. He's the one who had to go through all these different things. And it's like he's the one who's like, he goes, I know I'm going into a trap. I know I'm doing this to better my family. And the fact that he's willing to sacrifice everything in order to do it.
Yeah, that also, I think, in a way.
Like, and then I want to see more gravitas Oscar Isaac brings to the character. That's what I want. It's like the only character I would have loved to have seen play the character more, if he were younger, would have probably been Morgan Freeman. It's only to bring more gravitas to him. But no.
Now that's a picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, wait, I can see it. But yeah,
what about you, Mom? Do you have a favorite? I left you for last, just in case. Because he's going to throw a curveball at us.
No.
It's going to be like the Baron.
But as we're talking about this, and with my reading, and like, there's a lot more to Lady Jessica than the movie got to even portray.
Lady Jessica team.
And I know that Denny planned to have more things for Lady Jessica to do on screen. As far as in Dune story, which is nothing like whole new scenes. It's like, no, there are moments.
There's everything.
Yeah,
they're in the book. You're just going to present that. So that's going to give her a lot more of the discussion of why we kind of see Lady Jessica being a little bit more a background character.
Sorry, guys, I'm due on the desk.
Okay.
Bye, Nancy.
All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
One of the things that as I'm reading this and going through this, Moham, was it Moham?
Yeah. Guys, Helen,
you really thought you can do this, to have the Kwisatz Haderach that you can control. And it was like, in a lot of ways, even though she's not saying this and we don't hear this, I know that she is probably saying, no, I got this. I can do this.
That was my impression.
Right. I don't have to tell you that's what I plan all along. Because of the fact that they wanted to control the Kwisatz Haderach, what better way than just no, I got this. I'll raise the child of my own. I'm the one who's pulling the strings now. So, again, there's a lot more to Lady Jessica than what we get to really see on the big screen.
In that movie, yeah.
What shows. She definitely has plans within plans.
Yeah, she's powerful. She's a powerful person. You'll see her power evolve, and then you'll be like, can you handle all these tests? Because in a way, we're seeing Paul being tested, but throughout the entire book, Jessica is being tested.
Yeah.
Because
Paul passes because of Jessica, because of the teachings that he's given by her.
Yeah.
So, she's not saying, I did this on purpose. No, I just want to give him a son. No, you knew what you were doing, Jessica.
BS, yeah.
Don't give me that.
Well,
should have flipped her hair.
I just have to interject one last thing, though. I mean, for all the love of Jessica and everything else, and I do love her as a character. I thought she was amazing. Think about this. With Leto, that he inspired that much love in her for her to defy her orders. So that must show how amazing Leto was to make her make that decision. So it's
I will give you that because she does say, I can easily whisper anything to him and he'll do anything I'll say I can bend him easily, but I choose not to.
In the knee.
So, you're right.
Bend the knee. She could have.
She could have.
All right. So the very last question is, what scenes from the book did you imagine and or would like to see in the new movie coming out in now 2021? So anything specific? Because to me, any sandworm riding scenes, I think are going to be amazing. Heather's nodding.
I want to see inside the sandworm. I want to see the fiery inferno. I want to, part of me doesn't because it's all what's behind the curtain, that horrible, horror scene. It's more haunting to us to fear for the character rather than to see the monster. But another part of me is no, I want to see the sandworm. But I want to see it in IMAX. Other particular, I want to see a lot of Alia. I want to see her. Her character is so rich, and I want to see her interacting with Lady Jessica a little bit more as she grows up.
Joe, are you going to add something?
Oh, of course. Actually, one scene that I really would like to see would be the full version of the interaction between Lady Jessica and the Shadow Mate.
Ooh,
okay. That was one of the more fun scenes at the beginning of the book when they're discussing where everything has to be put and the shortening of the way and all those other wonderful little bits when she gets the crisp knife. And I always thought that was such a cool scene, and I'm like, gee, you're getting 2 seconds of it in the Lynch movie. Hello? But all right. Another scene that I definitely want to see, and I think they're going to have in the new movie, is the knife fight between Paul and...
Yes!
That scene. Because I think that's the scene where he finally is a full adult.
Mm-hmm.
When he has that...
Showcases, yeah.
Right. That's when he's saying, okay, I'm no longer a boy. I've taken away all those responsibilities. I'm now a man. I have to take care of my responsibility. And it's okay, you have to let go of your childish ways, so to speak.
I would just like the shields. Speaking of fight scenes, I would like the shields done well because I don't know what that was.
That was the bad.
Why are they so blocky?
It's the
blurry.
I love how they took the weirding way. I'd love to see that translated into the new movie correctly instead of just this
Weird.
And the thing is because I watched the dude who did the adaptation review. He was do you know how much cheaper it was to be book accurate? Because they're supposed to be just a shimmer. And instead they superimpose this just huge block all over them so you can't even see what's happening.
Yeah, you could see how hard that movie tried, and you'd be like,
"Why David Lynch?"
It was cringe-worthy. It was so fantastic, and you were just like,
beautiful.
Stop.
Yeah.
See, all right. So, Gene, is there any because I don't know if you got to finish.
I just want an honest adaptation of this thing. Like the first thing when they were doing the wording thing, the voice thing, Monty told me, like, "Okay, this isn't in the book." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, wait, but that becomes really important in the movie, and I'm like, I just want to see the way this is supposed to be done. Because while reading the book, I'm like, okay, I have to unthink that scene and how that was imagined and presented, and now I have to interpret it in its own way. But I needed the movie as a guideline to see, because I have trouble imagining things sometimes about, even when they're deeply described. I'm like, wait, what does that look like? I can't.
Well, before you keep reading the book, just rewatch the trailer for the 2021 movie.
Right,
Just superimpose your brain into that.
I just need that. I just want it in context. Just please give me a better version, because the book itself is so rich and has so many things in it. I'm just like, just do it right. So don't interfere with it. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm still untangling the whole thing, from movie to book, the interpretations. But I'm enjoying it. So.
Remind me, there was no description, nothing about the navigators, right? Other than
not in the book.
Right.
No.
So other than
shows up.
like Paul wants to look in on when they're traveling and say, "Oh, I want to look at the navigators while we're flying." I was like, no. It's closed off to us. You don't know what they look like, so that's out of the question.
They're Oz.
So if we get a version of that, for the love of God, don't do what you did in 1984 and make it look like that, because that was disgusting.
What was that thing?
It was so inappropriate.
I really want to know,
let's just do something different, or maybe not. Keep to the book.
I just really want to know if that was leftover concept art from some other crazy David Lynch movie.
That sums up David Lynch right there. That navigator, that's David Lynch.
And you're like, what are you doing, man? Nobody asked for this.
Nobody asked for half of that. Nobody needed the sting in a Speedo.
You did.
We all asked for that.
It was just like flaps. And you could
Heather's going to walk out of 2021 or the sequel, and she's going to be like, no one was in a Speedo, 0 out of 10.
It's
unwatchable.
It's not as shock factor. I want something to shock me and be like, what? No. I hope for some reason that they decide to maybe make a part 3, because I feel like the more time that they have to explain little things, I think the better, but I don't know.
We'll see, because that movie has to have been really expensive to make. I don't have the budget pulled up here somewhere. I don't know if they'll get to tackle more of the story, but so long as they cover the first book, I'm going to be
I feel like
happy.
I feel like the first book ends in a way where I feel like it was wrapped up well. In terms of Paul's story, you would definitely need movie 3.
May I just share with the class that I was watching the movie, and there's a scene where Paul and Lady Jessica have just escaped, and they're on the ground, they're running around, and he's like, I'm going to set off the tumbler, whatever it is, the vibrating thing.
God.
But if we walk without rhythm, we won't attract the worm. And immediately flashed to my head the Fat Boy Slim song, Weapon of Choice, that I've been listening to for years. That I had no idea that
you have to make that edit now.
From that movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you walk without rhythm, you won't attract the worm. It's from Dune.
You have to make that edit now.
So we have.
That's all I got. Yeah. So
we're gonna work on time. So let's go to our last part, which is
memes.
Our memes.
Oh, you kept my.
Yeah, I still kept it down to real business. That's what it is. That's what we're waiting for. Is that?
I knew it. I knew it was the right choice.
Baby Yoda gonna show up? No. Okay.
All right. So the dank memes must flow.
Jesus Christ.
I love this.
I really have to wonder who makes these.
We do. People like us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
So has a blade named Sting. Has blade, comma.
Blade. The Oxford comma, yes.
Yeah. Punctuation matters.
Yeah.
Spice expands consciousness. Space travel.
A catcher behind a catnip.
Uh-huh. Expectation versus reality. There's your little team moment for you, Heather.
That one's for you, yeah. For the ladies.
Oh, boy.
And then this is definitely.
Oh my god, I love this.
See, I told you.
Oh, go back. So yeah.
LinkedIn,
Back.
Instagram.
Look at it, Facebook,
And
Instagram,
the Tinder one is hysterical.
I know.
Tinder.
Just like the cutout, like showing the parts that matter, right?
Yeah.
Not his collarbone.
All right, and then of course, no, very appropriate.
Jesus Christ.
An article for Obama, for Trump, and of course, Moadib.
Moadib.
Look at that crowd size. And then this one I like. Silly Padawan, the force does not awaken, the sleeper awakens. My favorite line coming up. I'm not in the mood. Mood's a thing for cattle and love play.
Can't stop quoting Patrick Stewart, can you?
Yeah.
Nope.
And all I can see in the past and the future is like, yeah, but I can do it while standing.
Monty, that's awful.
Oh, that's an awful one.
That's so accurate.
That is
He's got the
awful.
ring. Yay, the ring.
Oh. All right. Now, of course, in today's environment, for sure, Paul will be wearing a mask. Well, the bar.
We're too close. Oh my god.
Make America.
Yes.
Not to get too political here, but yeah.
In a non-political way, I will say his
Yeah.
face photoshopped perfectly into that. So
It looks.
So,
Yeah, dude.
do not try.
Okay.
poor eyebrows.
Caterpillar brows.
Poor eyebrow man.
Oh, no. One day I'll get this.
We've got,
And then doing the classic Jaws poster.
That actually looks really cool.
Yeah.
And David Lynch said, make it slow.
Oh my god.
This one I love for years. IR Dune class.
I can guys, I can show the universe. Little burrito.
And then one last meme. I promise.
That would be me if I was the Reverend Mother using the voice.
Okay, lefty.
We're all Dune dorks.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And we are officially done with our first Dune book club. Of
Good
book one.
insight. I like everyone's thoughts, perspectives.
So congratulations. This was a long
Yay!
coming and a long time planning.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you to
Feel the
everyone.
pride swelling your chest.
Part of
Mutt.
this.
Just-
Yes.
Thank you for enduring the movie as I did.
And next.
And we're going to do it again 2 more times. So,
Woohoo!
I promise the book, once the more you read, the easier it gets, like, to really delve in. Like I was saying, like, just pick something that you really care about, like whether it's the theme or the character or the world building, and try and focus on that. Don't worry if you miss, like, aspects of it, because we're enough nerds here that we can just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And of course, Dean, call us like you usually do, either Monty or I, and we'll be happy to help you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Again.
if you need if you
And
need
again.
Sparks notes.
And again,
Yeah.
Oh, Monty, did you want to include like the tour.com? It will break down the link
I'll
that you.
send everyone the link for it. Separate, yeah. But yeah, someone gave me a link for tour.com about even better breakdowns of each chapter, even more information about the Dune movie. So, I mean, it's a treasure trove of a lot of good information.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Not that I'm promoting this, but this Handman series, it's not me.
Just lean it forward. Yeah, perfect.
So, second part is done today, and then moving on to book 3 next month. So, is anyone interested, or someone who's interested in joining us, please let them know or let me know so I can get them on. Because that's the only way we'll get to have people joining us.
Yeah, word of mouth.
That's Gene and I and Melinda. A little cluster of people. So, any final thoughts?
I'm glad you introduced me to this world, but I hate you for it. Damn you, burn and hell, burn. It's just, I mean, it's great. I am impressed with it. I am impressed with Herbert's world building. It's amazing, but you have to untangle it. You have to do the work. But what you put into it, what you understand of it is great, and it feeds the soul. It is a quotable thing. It is enjoyable, but it's such a tome. It's such a thing to get through. But I'm coming around. It's
we'll get through it.
I'm starting to enjoy it a bit.
Through it, and then things will get weird.
The real Dune book club goal was to get Gene into it. Just to have him at the end of the 3 months, he's going to be like,
or to drive me insane. One of the two. I don't know.
We'll drive you so sane that you're insane.
Great. All right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Joe, any parting words?
Any last words?
I enjoyed rereading the novel again, and I'm actually going to read Dune Messiah. And I'm like, oh, okay. As I think the first time I tried to read it, it just threw me off because I'm like going, wait a minute, what do you mean Paul's not the hero? Oh, okay. Now that I'm, shall we say, at a point where I'm like, I can read it, I'm like, oh, I'm enjoying this. This is fun. Okay. Let's see what happens after.
Okay. So we'll get to that point in our discussion to see if we want to continue with the book club going further with Dune. So we'll see.
Okay.
Rebecca or Heather?
I really like book 3. I can't wait till y'all catch up to me. It gets real weird. But I like this discussion. I think this is pretty great. Yeah. And John every single time.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really like the group we've got here. So thank you, everyone, for your insight, for your enthusiasm, for the pain and suffering you're willing to put up with when you have to watch the movie.
Yep. No.
So many things about that movie. Wait, he has to milk the cats every day to serve? That doesn't make any sense.
Let alone make that into an action figure. That doesn't make sense either.
Oh, wait, and you're going to show them off next time, right, Monty?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. So, again, we'll do this next month. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And
happy Thanksgiving.
Everyone but the turkeys.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving.
Remember to stay socially distanced.
No.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, so that's going to be the end of our Dune podcast, in which this is, again, just part 1 of our Dune podcast. Not giving up on the Dune podcast saying here. But again, if you got this far, thank you very much for listening to us talk about Dune. And again, I'll be releasing part 2 and 3 in the next couple of months. Also, remember, there is an extended version or an enhanced version which will be on YouTube, in which you can actually see the presentation that I did, along with everyone else. So it's not just, what are they talking about? What are they looking at? I don't know. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. I don't know. That's what they say, right? Alright, in any case, thank you very much for listening to us on the Monster Sci-Fi Show. It's sci-fi from a certain point of view. Good night.
Welcome to Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
Hello everyone, Dr. Geek here with a shout out to all the scientists who worked tirelessly to bring a COVID-19 vaccine into reality. Let's face it, creating something of this magnitude is a miracle worthy of Dr. McCoy himself. And now, Dr. Geek needs you to do your part. Remember, each shot is one small step back to normal, one giant leap to putting the pandemic behind us. We can do this. For more information, visit vaccines.gov to find your nearest provider.
Time to grab your pillow and join the Geek Father and Little Bit for discussions on current, nostalgic, and speculative happenings in pop culture. Nerd news, fandom histories, deep dive discussions, reviews, and more. It's like listening to your closest friends have a nerdy conversation. So sit back, relax, and let the Blurred Nerds podcast embrace you with their warm, goofy goodness. It's Nerd Goals for your ear holes, right here on the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.